Robbie, Matt, and Woody on the mic tonight, because I know how to make a house party right. And if you want to make it flow all night long, you know what? Just bring the beats, the bangs, the brew, and it's on. Till the break of dawn, that's what we're jamming to. We can and will, ain't nobody standing still. Freaking on the floor, and we gonna be sweet. We can't repeat like Jordan gonna three-peat. 3 fly brothers here to freak the funky flow, G. If you're my homie, better holla like you know me. We're still going down, so sound the alarm. We're about to drop a bomb that won't do you no harm. 3rd time's the jaw, but it won't be the last. Run tell your friends how we all had a blast. We can't stop, son. We're gonna rock, son. We're gonna party till the cops come. Oh, here goes. And welcome to the 87th episode of Throwback Hoops. Woody V is in the house. As always, follow the show on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Please rate, like, and subscribe. We appreciate everyone's support. You would have just heard me drop some bars from Kid and Play's 1994 track, Make Some Noise, from the House Party 3 soundtrack, where Kid made a reference to Jordan winning his first ever three-peat. And as always, I'm joined by my brother, Robbie Clayton. What's going on, man?
How are you, mate? It's good to see Rapping Woody's back. He hasn't been on the show for a little while. It's nice to have him back.
Well, your daughter said that she missed that, right? So I thought, let's bring that back a little bit, right?
Nice.
So we're joined by a very special guest today. Not only is he a good friend of the show, making his 3rd guest appearance on Throwback Hoops, but he's become a good friend of ours. He's the godfather of the Sydney Kings. You'll not meet a kinder, nicer human being than this man. So in the words of Ahmad Rashad, I'd like to say, what's up to my main man, Matty McQuade? What's going on?
I love it. I got to start by saying I'm getting serious Rodney O 1990s vibes with that rap, man. So you did extremely well. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You got us in the mood. That was fantastic. And thanks
Appreciate
for the very, very kind introduction. It's always great to be on with you guys. And even though Rob doesn't really want to be here tonight because we know what we're talking about, Woody, our team,
sure.
right?
For
okay,
sure.
and Rob, but then Rob's got look. I give him credit. He's rocking, my other team. I always say I'm the great dichotomy. On the one hand, I bleed green and white, and the other hand, I bleed purple and gold. So, it's a bit crazy, but it's great to be here, and always love talking hoops with you guys.
And Matt, I'm not going to rob you of 15 years of dedication to the Sydney Kings. It was 1979, not 30 years, man. It's more like 45, right? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the funny thing in the round table. I think Adam said, you've been involved for 30 years. I said, no, man, I'm sorry. It's a lot longer than that as far as Sydney basketball and the NBL is concerned. And you're right, it's pretty frightening because, as I also said, I became Tim Morrissey last month. As in, I turned 55, which is insane to me. And every Kings fan knows that was Tim Morrissey's number, also AC Earl's number, when he had that little short-lived stint with us. So, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel like. I still feel like a kid sometimes, to be honest with you, which is good. Hopefully it means got a bit further to go.
Age ain't nothing but a number, man. You're only as old as you feel, Matty. So you got a nice shirt on there, which represents a beautiful ball club. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what you're wearing there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit boring compared to what you guys are wearing, but it's the 25th season anniversary of the Kings, and which I actually was the chairman of selectors for the 25th anniversary team, which you've obviously got someone who was in that team as a starter. Yep. So, I mean, it's every so often I wear it because it kind of reminds me of my connection to this club and how it all started. And I remember so much of it from the start in, when even before the first season in 88, I've never forgotten when they first announced it, which was 14th of October 1987. They announced that there was going to be this team called the Sydney Kings, and the 2 previous teams, the Supersonics, Sydney Supersonics and the West Sydney West Stars, were no longer, and they were going to merge and become this new team, which, of course, really, look, people may scoff, but it changed history. I mean, it changed everything as far as the NBL is concerned, because before 1988, we never, ever had, Sydney basketball was nowhere. There was 1 year in 83, which was the great Supersonics team with Owen Wells out at Alexandria that was awesome, won 16 straight in the regular season. But other than that, maybe, the 2 Sydney teams made the playoffs in 86, but they went out immediately in the first round. But really, the connection, the media, the corp, they didn't care until the Kings came about in 1988 and started what's been an incredible journey for me, being one of the very first season ticket holders and still holding a season ticket for them. So, yeah, it's been amazing. And you're right, Woody. I mean, it is also a reminder of how old I am. Definitely.
And all the service you've given to the ball club, it doesn't go unnoticed. And all us Kings diehards, we appreciate everything you've done, man. So good work. Good on you. All right, Robbie. I know Matt came on the show, and you decided to bring out all your Celtics gear. So why don't you get into it? Tell the audience a little bit about what you got going on there, man.
As I mentioned to you both at the start before we started recording, I've had a shocking migraine today, so my reward for that is to record with two absolute Sydney Kings nuts. So that's going to make my head hurt even more by the time we finish with that. But no, absolutely, I wanted to rep a couple of Celtics jerseys, like I did last time, in honour of Matt, the big Celtics fan here. So the one I'm hanging over my shoulder, you can probably just see it over there. It's a D Brown green Celtics champion jersey. So a little bit about D Brown. Played 12 seasons in the NBA after getting drafted by Boston at pick 19 in the 1990 draft out of Jacksonville. Spent most of his career with the Celtics before finishing off his playing career with Toronto and the Spurs. So he will be remembered as a 1991 NBA dunk champ, doing these ones, but was actually a pretty underrated player, I think. Ended with a career averages of 11, 2 and 3. Post-career, he had a number of coaching roles. The 54-year-old's currently working in the front office at his former college, Jacksonville. So a bit of a blast from the past with D Brown there. Got a little trivia question. I'm going to get Matt on with as well after I'm done. But yeah, and all good. And the one I'm wearing, obviously a legend of the Celtics. So I'll stand up and show you this one here. I know Matt's going to like this one.
So Robbie, for all who can see, is rocking.
Truth. Yeah.
Matt will tell you the truth, man. The truth.
The mother effing truth, as Shaquille O'Neal called it.
Exactly.
It all. So yeah, I was just going to say, Robbie, just interesting story with D Brown. I actually met him, and I've got a signed cap of him and Danny Manning of all things. They came out here.
They did.
For one of the NBA Jam things that they were doing.
Yeah,
and I remember
that's right.
I can't remember what shopping centre it was, but they were there, and I had a 1980s and still have an 86 Celtics cap, Champions cap, and I got him to sign that, and Danny Manning signed it as well, even though he never played for the Celtics, so it was quite funny. But yeah, D, I mean, you got to talk about the shoes, man. I mean, the pumps.
I was thinking of that ad today. Hey, D Brown, and he's the Reebok pump ads, Dominique awesome. Had him back in the day as well. So, no, very, very good campaign that one was. Well, look, I'll talk a little bit about the truth here, and then I've got a little bit of a trivia question for Matt before I wrap it up. So, look, just a little bit about the man named The Truth. As we mentioned, Shaq dubbed him that in 2001. Look, an absolute legend. He played 19 seasons in the NBA after getting drafted out of Kansas by the Celtics at pick 10 in the 98 draft. Played with the Celtics from 98 until 2013 before ending his career with short stints with the Nets and Wizards, and then finished off in his birthplace of California with the Clippers. Look, if we're talking accolades, he's got plenty. So, namely NBA champ and Finals MVP in 2008. He was a 10-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA, and was named as a member of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. He also, interestingly enough, only had one game over 50 points, which I looked at today, which I was a little bit surprised about. 2006, when he went toe-to-toe with LeBron. Look, an absolute legend, someone I really liked. What do you think about him, Matt? Would you say he's a top 10, definitely a top 10 Celtic of all time? Or it's a pretty tough list, isn't it?
Well, yeah. That's the thing about the Celtics, right? Because you kind of got your five, which, I mean, there are people that mix and match the five. He's got to be close. Yeah. I think he's look, because of the Celtics was such a dynasty, and then the Bird, the Cale Parrish, DJ Ames Celtics, particularly the 86 team that I always go crazy about, was such a dynasty at the time. It's, but he was, you have to think about it, because he, the points he put up, the great battles he had with LeBron at his peak, we will never forget those. Winning that championship, which kind of cemented his legacy really as a Celtic for all time, and what he had to go through, because he played on some pretty crappy teams. I mean, God, I saw him play in that team. I've told the story before about being in the TD North Garden, and it wasn't even full. It was like the place holds about 19,000. There was only like about 12,000 there.
Wow.
So I had awesome tickets, and watching them play the Clippers. And I mean, the Celtics, they won that game. They were terrible. That was the Rick Pitino Celtics, and he was part of that. He played for some bad teams. So getting an opportunity to, go to the ultimate was just reward for really a guy that was an incredible servant of basketball. He's probably in my top 10, I would say, because you kind of look at where he ranks all time in a lot of categories for the Celtics, and he's right there.
Certainly the best Celtics for the player for the last 30 years as well, right?
So, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, he and KG I absolutely adore. I mean, and KG's a funny case because he was only there, 4 seasons, I think, 4 or 5 seasons. Mm-hmm. And yet he had all those years in Minnesota, and yet when he came, it was kind of like, Minnesota who? There's KG's a Celtic. And of course he moved on and did other things, played for the Nets and all that after he got traded. But, I think he's an all-timer as well. As far as Celtics are concerned.
Well, my trivia question for you, Matt, we did this last time when I was rocking the Dana Barros jersey. I asked you, since he'd left, who wore that number? So basically, D. Brown finished with the Celtics in 98. There has been 10 players that have worn that number 7 for the Celtics. Obviously, a pretty well-known current one. How many of those 10 can you throw at me?
Probably none at the moment.
Hey, you were so good with the Dana Barros one. There's quite a lot, I've got to say. There's a few that I was like, wow, I kind of forgotten about them there.
The obvious one is my guy, Jaylen Brown. So, and I say that's I mean, it's I couldn't. I have gone completely blank.
I'll give him in order. A lot of point guards here. So we've got Kenny Anderson, Tony Delk, Chucky Atkins. This is the next one I completely forgot.
That's probably why, because these guys,
Tom Gugliotta, completely.
Love Google Eyes, man.
The next one you remember pretty well, Al Jefferson. So obviously he was in that trade to
Cookie Monster.
Yeah. Mikey or Mickey Moore, never know which one to pronounce.
Love Mikey, most improved player, 2005 maybe.
One of your favourites, Woods, Marquise Daniels.
Love Mark. Got his jersey, man. Got his jersey. Love Marquise, man.
And then
I just remembered. I know who you're going to say. Jared Sullinger, right?
Yes, correct. So he was the last one before Jaylen Brown. There's one more before him. So the one that wore it between and another big guy.
Hang on. Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Played for Indiana.
Portland. Yep.
Oh, God. See, this is what happens when you get to 50.
He was actually in the news this week as well. Because
Jermaine O'Neal. That's why I remember.
J.O.
Yeah.
There you go.
And the reason he was in the news, because Buddy Hield, of course, is changing his number from the Pacers from 24 to 7, which is J.O.'s number, and J.O. kind of thinks that it probably should have been retired there, which possibly it could have been. But anyway, no, I thought that was a bit of a trip down memory lane. There's a few unremarkable guys there, but obviously Jaylen Brown's wearing it with a lot of pride at the moment. So, good stuff. Well, that's my little Celtics wrap for today. But
you got me. You didn't get me the time before. You got me this time. So there you go.
You came up with Sasha Pavlovich last time and all these random players, man.
I don't know why. It was weird. Anyway.
All right, Woods. Let's start the Sydney Kings fest off. Who are you
wearing, man?
Go Cats! You talk about the Cats if you want.
Woods is
you got to be
standing up.
excited about them. Look at Woods.
Oh, definitely. That's
of course.
A nice jersey.
Again, my guy.
44.
That's my guy.
Shout out to our friends at Throwback Store who came up with the remake of all these Kings classic jerseys recently. I managed to grab
another of my guys, Mike Lazarus, the man himself.
Yep.
And you told me the Godfather. The Godfather is his dad, Andrew Lazarus. I call him the Godfather because he literally is the Godfather of Sydney basketball. He's an amazing man. I mean, he goes back to when it all started, like me. Only he was, he put together the team, the original astronauts. So. Yeah, Andrew Lazarus. Shout out to him and shout out to Mike, who's just a fantastic guy. Love him.
So instead of me going through his accolades and everything and talking about Dwayne McClain,
you want to hear some stories? Maybe not. I don't know if Dwayne would want me to tell the story, some of the stories, but anyway.
I will tell you one thing though. Like, I think I've told this story on the show before. Like, I think it was 91 or something. They had you had the banners in the crowd. You'd create banners and
great. It was great times.
And back then there was that ad, McCain, you've done it again, right? So I came up with my dad, Dwayne McClain, you've done it again, and I literally spent all day with my mom creating this beautiful banner with all the like McCain's like
Uh,
logos and Dwayne McClain, you've done it again. And
That's
then
great.
Channel 10 came and interviewed me and stuff and said we
Did
loved the
they?
banner and stuff.
Awesome.
I must have been 7 or 8 years old. But you said earlier, Matt, something that rung out to me. In 1988, you know, basketball was nothing in Sydney, in New South Wales. It didn't mean a lot, right?
Yeah.
It was really, for me, 1991, you know, that team you spoke about, Tim Morrissey, Damian Keogh, Kenny McClary, you know, Dwayne McClain. You know, basketball was the forefront of everybody's minds in 1991 when Dwayne McClain joined. You know, he was on billboards and, you know, everyone knew who Dwayne McClain was just as much as you would know the footy players or the, you know, the AFL players or the cricketers, you know. And I think we've come back to a point in time where basketball is really at the forefront of people's mind in New South Wales. But I don't think it's ever going to be like it was in that 91 period.
Well, I mean, you talk 91, and you're right. But 92 was then completely. It just blew the kingdom come. And it was because of him.
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
sure.
You know, he, like I always say, he was the Michael Jordan of Australian basketball. He was. The way he played, his charisma, obviously, just he was everywhere. And you talked about, you know, where he was. I mean, this is the only guy in the history of this country who had his own shoe by Reebok, the black top. That was his shoe.
I remember. Yeah.
We're talking, I mean, Reebok in there, like even now, that would be a huge deal. You know, if someone from Nike, if someone got their own shoe from Nike, you know, an NBL player. This is an NBL player got it from a behemoth in Reebok. It's extraordinary in 92. And, you know, I mean, look, obviously, full disclosure, I've known him since 91. I was very close with him and have stayed close with him, even though he's in Florida now, but saw him. He actually came and commentated a half of an Inner West Bulls game with me, which was fantastic. And just to see him, I mean, look, he's like a brother. You know, I love him to death. He's one of those special people that you meet in life that you're very fortunate to meet. The stories I could tell, probably a whole bunch, not for publication, but what I can say is that I've never, ever seen a more magnetic, charismatic personality who people adored no matter where he went. He was like the Pied Piper. Everybody loved him. Everybody wanted to be the D Train. And you're talking about, I mentioned the McDonald's ad. That was another one, you know, with a little kid and takes the kid's fries and, you know, it calls it Mickey D's, which is what they call it in the US. And the kid says, you know, thanks, Mr. McClain, but you've got to call it Macca's and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, the City Rail, massive posters, catch the D Train, all the other stuff he did, and the, you know, driving the Celebrity Grand Prix in Adelaide, and all, like, it's just millions and millions of things. Had the most popular nightclub with Rodney, he and Rodney, which was at Kinsella's back in the day, and, you know, oh God, I could tell you some stories. Holy cow.
So you're 55 now, so let's count back 30 years. 24-year-old Matty McQuade.
24,
yeah. So you were on the stage rapping back then, you know? Right?
Oh, God, he pulled me up once. Oh, that was embarrassing. I can't rap. It's like I can't jump. You know, this is almost the same. But yeah, it was a magnificent time. And 92, I always say, you know, look, the Kings, unbelievable. The crowds are phenomenal. And, you know, the last two games of the season, the two grand final games, 18,000 plus both times. Incredible, unprecedented, record-breaking. But 92, man, we had, what was it? I think 10 or 11 consecutive sellouts. And where it was, the centre of the CBD, Darling Harbour, I mean, the whole thing, the pump house, Darling Harbour, Chinatown, everything, you know, it was an event every single night. And it was because of him and the stuff that he did. And I saw it all. And I went on road trips pretty much everywhere with him. There wasn't hardly a place I didn't go with him. And, and then going on the road and after the games that we played on the road, my God, some of the stories I could tell about him and Rodney for that matter, but keep that quiet. Nah, it's all good.
And you know
it was just special. It was like, look,
Yep.
you know, people talk about the Bulls, right? And that, look, in a smaller way, it's not the same because, I mean, MJ's MJ. And that whole thing was like a circus. But let me tell you, when we were on the road, I mean, it was crazy, man. We go out afterwards and holy cow, any city you want to name, like people were just all over him. Amazing. All over Dwayne. And the other Kings were sort of there as well. on the side.
I don't think there's been a basketball player that's had that kind of influence on popular culture, you know?
No, not exactly, because he
Yeah.
transcended it.
Yeah.
That's the key that people who weren't around then, and
Yep.
people I think, oh, you know, rose-colored glasses, all that crap. But I mean, I know I was there. I was a part of it. I remember it like it was yesterday. You know, the times that we all spent together. There was a whole group of us, including a certain former president of the Illawarra Hawks. You know,
Dori Kodahi. Yeah, I know,
Kodahi,
man. Yeah.
and his brother, who obviously we're very close, and then Craig Moller's agent, Tahi Martin, who's my best friend in the world. So we were all, that was our group, and Dwayne.
Did you know Raj? Did you know Raj B by any chance?
Yeah. Oh, we knew them all, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, it's just one of those things. I sometimes sort of look back. There was to give you an idea. I think it was it the Herald, the Sun Herald, or the Sydney Morning Herald? They created, I think it was a 68-page season preview, which I've still got.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about the NBL Blitz, what's going on in the NBL at the moment. So I thought I won't spend too much time on it, but let me touch base on the Corey Webster situation. Everyone who doesn't know, basically a message got put on Twitter where someone put up the LGBTQ flag and said, "What does this make you think of when you see this flag?" And Corey Webster replied with something along the lines of mental illness or mental health or something along the lines of that. Robbie, maybe I'll throw to you first, being Perth Wildcats guy. Do you think that the Wildcats dealt with this appropriately and the NBL did?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Look, firstly, I mean, he's been a guy that's been a bit outspoken. I kind of feel bad. I'm not going to stick up for him. I do really like the guy, as you know. But, I mean, there's no place in saying stuff like that in today's world. You can think it, sure. No one can, tell you what you can and can't think. But there's just no need to put those sort of things, in the public eye for everyone there. Look, I think it would have been difficult. I know, obviously, they were playing against Adelaide last night. Isaac Humphries is on that team. We know, obviously, Isaac Humphries came out last year. I think that could have been a very difficult situation had they been playing them. And wonder if that played a part there. But I think just disappointing is probably the best word I can use to describe that, Woods.
Matt?
Yeah, we talked about it on the round table. And it was, and it looked, disappointing is a good word. It still happens. It was a pointless comment. It really was. I mean, look, at the end of the day, and this is the thing I said, that all players are given social media training, and it's one of those instances where just don't hit send, dude. We don't need to hear it. It's not necessary. What does it do other than create a firestorm? You're playing for a high-profile club, the gold standard, as Robbie knows I call them, and he's had, look, this isn't the first time he's done something like this. He's had form, but why do we need, it's you've got your belief. Look, you're entitled to your beliefs. Let me put that out there. You're entitled to your beliefs. Whether or not I agree with them is another story. But what I don't appreciate is you, as a member of a club and representing the National Basketball League, putting that kind of view in the public domain. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I thought the Wildcats handled it pathetically to start with. I thought, the statement they came out with was really weak.
Speak on it, Matt.
I honestly believe that, and they needed to be stronger.
Yep.
With it. Now, standing him down was the smart move, but again, it's just and look, it's not, and this is why I also said this, that it's certainly not a fireable offence. It's not, even a finable offence for me. It was just absolute abject stupidity to hit send and send that comment out. I mean, what's the point? What was the point of it?
We saw an NRL player recently.
We don't need to hear it. Yep. And as Robbie said, it's incredibly disappointing. And the problem is it casts a pall over, the Wildcats, the NBL. You're in the news for the wrong reasons. And particularly after Isaac came out as publicly and as bravely as he did. And what cracks me up about guys like Corey is that he's no doubt played with guys of the LGBTQ community in his past without knowing it. So, it's really... Yeah,
I was just going to say there was an NRL...
Old school stupidity, really not good.
was just gonna say, there's an NRL player recently that took a photo and put it on social media of him having drugs on him. Then you see Corey Webster doing this. There's not a lot going on upstairs with some of these guys, right? Like, come on, like how stupid do you have to be, right, to put it in the public eye?
Yeah.
So it's just
keep
careless.
It to yourself, dude. Like, keep it to yourself. We don't need to hear it. We don't need athletes. I'm very athletes. For the right reasons. Social media can be great. It can be fantastic. I mean, some of the connections I've made are just extraordinary over the years. But man, it can be a freaking cesspool at times, and that's the sort of crap that drives me nuts.
If used wisely, you speak about relationships developed. Our relationship has been developed with you across social media, and now we've got this great relationship. So it can go both ways. I agree with you, Matt.
100%.
All right, so let's move on quickly. I've been really impressed with Tyler Cook, man. He's come in. He's a beast, this kid, right? So what he's bringing to SEM, and you thought Alan Williams is out for a bit. They're going to struggle, but this guy hasn't missed a beat. So, Matt, maybe I'll throw to you, man. How impressive has he been for SEM?
Oh, unbelievable. It's like, you lose Alan Williams and you come up with this guy, another NBA player who you got to love the way he plays. Like Alan, max energy, crashes the boards. He's a scorer. He looks like he enjoys playing. He looks like he works hard. And he's a replacement player, man. I mean, if this is an audition for some other team, and there'd be a couple of other teams looking at him very carefully, they'd have to be, right? Because he's in country now. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Big Sauce comes back, and this guy's potentially around and available.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Robbie?
No, he's definitely been impressive. I mean, what did he have? 29-9 against your Kings the other night. I told you, Woods, I'm quite high on this Southeast Melbourne team. Obviously,
I wasn't at the start of the season.
Others. Yeah, you more than others.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we know it's going to be a pretty competitive team. It feels like every team's really, loaded up this year, with the exception of one that we're going to talk about in a second.
I wonder who that is.
Dwayne Cook, Good segue, right, Woods?
Well, Tyler Cook was like this at the end of that Sydney game, and I was thinking, I was talking to Julian O'Brien, your boy, and I was like, J.O., is he talking to the NBA scouts in the crowd, or is he talking to another NBL team, man, potentially? So let's get to that team, right? I noticed that Jamal Franklin was released today, I think, right? And I heard about your thoughts about him on the roundtable, Matt. Maybe he wasn't NBL ready.
Funny about that, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of a shit show. What's going on here? I mean, they had Randall last year. This guy obviously had some issues in the Filipino league before coming here. Where to?
They can be started on the PBA. I'm thinking, oh my god, it's not the greatest resume when your last stop was the PBA.
Yeah,
really.
So I mean, where to from here? You got to. I know you and CJ.
They're a disaster. Relationship,
they
are. Yeah, I do. I mean, look, I got someone criticised me on Twitter, and look, I take the criticism. That's fine. That saying I should have gone harder on CJ, and as a coach, when I was sort of questioning the, Jacob Jackamus is he? Oh, well, it wasn't a question. It was more of we will find out if he's an NBL, because we don't really know still. That was the only point I wanted to make. We don't know if Jacob is in it because he hasn't had a run at it. I mean, Simon Mitchell talked to me about it. Said he hasn't had a run at it, and he's right. He hasn't. So this year with the team that they've built, I think he will. But getting back to Adelaide, I don't think CJ's been given the horses. I mean, you look at the three guys. I'm not a fan of Jacob Wiley. I don't think he's an elite player. Trey Kell, I think the jury's out on him. Injured too much last year. Now, I know, getting back to Simon, he really likes him. And I did as well. But he didn't set the world on fire. Yes, he was injured a lot. But, sometimes they say the best ability is availability. He just wasn't there. He's already injured in the the preseason. And then this guy, Franklin, when they picked him up, I just shook my head. Oh, my God, are you serious? Like, that's just the ultimate budget import when they needed to make a huge splash. But you just wonder about the money situation with Grant Kelly. You wonder about how that whole front office is being run, who's making the decisions, because the team they put together is a team that can finish last. And that's really unfortunate because Adelaide they did so well with their crowds last year, and the engagement at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre, and they weren't great, and maybe part of that might have been due to Kai Soto and they had, look, Antonius Cleveland was terrific, and Robert Franks had his moments, although never played D. But I'm really worried for 36er fans because unless they pull out, they need, if they're going to go the point guard route, because I believe they will.
They do. They need to go that route. They need to go that route for sure.
But I'd cut Wiley. Tyler Cook instead of Wiley next to Isaac Humphries. Are you kidding me? Give me that all day. I just don't rate Wiley at all.
I mean, 5-6 years ago he came, played with that energy, right?
Yeah,
it's a long time since he's been here, right?
Yeah. Look, he was. You're right. Energy is a good way to describe him, but you're right. It was a few years ago now, and the words I used were, do they move the needle as imports? And to me, they don't. And then you've got Mitch McCarron. You can't play him at point guard. Just turns the ball over. I've been criticised for it. Oh, look at the assist numbers. Yeah, but look at the turnover numbers. Look at his ATO ratio, and then and tell me if he makes anybody better. And I love Mitch McCarron as a player. People think I'm harsh on him. No, I'm harsh on him. I'm not harsh on him. I just think he's playing the wrong position. I just don't see him as a point guard. You got Jace Kadey's probably the best point guard on the roster right now, but Jace is at a point in his career that you can't put. And I love him, obviously, and I've known him for many, many years. But I've always said he's like a Lou Williams super duper 6-man type.
Yep, I agree.
And that's where his best position is. So, and you sort of look at the rest of the roster, obviously getting Isaac back, and that's a coup. Even though we all know Isaac's injury history's been problematic, although he did well last year. So that's always a worry with him. But just the way that team's been built is just, I'm really concerned for their future this season.
Well, I messaged you last night, Woods, didn't I, when the Wildcats were up 31-4, and said this Adelaide team's basically an NBL 1 level. Honestly, that's the first thing that came to my mind. They would struggle against some of the top NBL 1 teams that are going around. So, they're the one team that I think is going to really struggle this year. I think every other team look like they've improved. So it's just
you're absolutely right, Robbie. There are positives for every other team, bar that one. And getting back to CJ, and he's going to be it's his last year of his contract. He's going to be under enormous pressure as well. And you just look at them and say, how on earth are they going to make a run to even a playing game? I mean, that's the way it is right now. And that I was literally while I'm watching that, Robbie, and my mouth dropped because that in that 31-4 run, that was a team that just didn't look like they cared or understood the game plan or were prepared to work or prepared to play D, any number. And you're thinking, okay, yes, it's only preseason, but as I've often said, preseason is about standard setting. If that's the standard they're going to set themselves this year, and God help them.
They were making turnovers and just standing there at half court. I mean, Woods and I have played together for years. What's the thing I always say, Woods, on our team? What do you do if you make?
He yells at me when I turn the ball over.
But you'd be the first one down the other end to try and make up for it. That's all I say, right? And that was something that Adelaide were not doing last night. They were turning it over and just standing at half court and watching a Wildcats layup line there. So big concerns there, I think.
Yeah, I hope they can turn around because everyone knows. I mean, my relationship with CJ, my relationship with his dad. All of that, and and again, he's been given horses. Now he may have had something to do with selecting the team. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But the team they've built, it'd take a hell of a coaching performance to get that team above 500, in my opinion.
Well, I read today that Trenton Flowers is going to be moved to the 3 spot.
Well, that should be. So that's another thing because I've been told by a couple of reliable sources that he was guaranteed the certain minutes, but also to start at point guard because his agent felt like that was the best way to get him more attention from an NBA perspective in the upcoming draft. But he's never played point in his life, and we saw the outcome of that. In the early game against New Zealand when he got absolutely destroyed and turned the ball over like 7 times, it just looked like he couldn't even dribble. Yeah. So the wing is his position, and that's where he's got to.
The kid's got talent, and that's what his future. That's what his future.
No question about that. No argument.
playing the 3 spot, right?
Yeah.
And getting a guy, a Shannon Scott type, to run this team is probably something that they could do with, right? Like a veteran point guard who knows how to run an offense, get them into their sets. I think they need that.
That's true, but with their talent, you're right. But with their talent level,
that's true.
It more needs to be a Jalen Adams or a Derek Walton Jr.
That's
sure. What they need. They need one of those guys.
Yeah,
they absolutely do.
Yeah, but
they can't have one of them because we got him.
Yeah,
the Kings have got him, but that's the sort of splash I thought they were going to make, Woody.
Budgetary constraints, though, right?
Yeah.
But
but look, how much do you think they paid Robert Franks or Antonio Scott?
Yeah, that's true. That's
last
true.
year, and Kai Sotto didn't come cheap either.
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't have mentioned him. I'll get in trouble.
You can't help it, Matt.
No, I know. Oh, he's gone. What a shame. But it's tough times, unfortunately.
Well, if they can bring in a floor general, get rid of Wiley, as you said, and bring in a Tyler Cook type, then that would
might change. Yeah, and look, you mentioned it. Flowers has got talent, and I'm not knocking his talent. I'm just knocking the fact that there's no way you put him in as a point guard and expect him to run a team.
I think the whole country agrees with you on that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, Adelaide fans do.
All right, so let's move on really quickly. I wanted to ask you guys one takeaway from Blitz so far. Maybe a team, a player, something that stood out for you guys. So maybe, Robbie, I'll throw over to you first.
Well, I'm going to put my Homer hat on here, Woods.
Well, of course you are.
A guy I'm very high on. Not just because I got to commentate him last year, but someone that I think is really fitting in well, and that's Ben Henschel.
Oh, man, I hear that.
Look, he had pretty small minutes in the first game there, but last night against Adelaide, so we should mention, the time of recording, Wednesday the 20th of September, last night in that big win over Adelaide, the 19-year-old put up a line of 17, 4, 3 and 2 steals in only 18 minutes, so he looked really good out there, I thought. I think we spoke, Woods, because you came and watched that game when Hills played COE.
Oh, man, I did.
He's sneaky tall. He's a lot taller than kind
impressive,
of...
Man.
Yeah, I really like what he's bringing to the Wildcats. He's a good defender, long arms, he's got an improving shot there. I'm just really excited. He's probably going to be that first Wildcats jersey I'll get this year. I'm liking that new Wildcats jersey too, with a little yellow on the side. But yeah, someone that I'm just really high on. So yeah, Ben Henschel for me.
Let me tell you a story about John Riley. When the Bulls were playing the COE at our place, I was calling the game, and of course, Riley was texting me all sorts of junk throughout. But he was actually watching the game for Henschel. He loves Henschel. So, and I was exactly what you said. Just he's sneaky long, he's sneaky athletic, but the IQ's off the charts. And like that whole team did under Robbie McKinlay, when they were all together, there's a level of hard work and intensity that's required with those guys. That's why the COE would have destroyed the competition had they all stayed together for the finals. The finals would have been a walkover because, the Bulls copped them in the second round, and it was kind of like, I'm watching it. And we actually did pretty well against them. We got done by about, 15, 16 or something. But I was so impressed with him and another player that we'll talk about in a minute. But, that's a great call for you, Benny Henschel.
Matty?
I think that what would it be? Maybe the third coming of Matthew Dellavedova so far.
Cool.
Playing like a man with a point to prove, playing like a man who still believes he can get to Paris. And again, it's only preseason, but he carries it through and he stays out of injuries, and he's playing like this, and we know how hard he plays. That's kind of a pass mark for him, playing hard. He just goes to, like Damian Martin, that's called the comp for him has always been, for me, that just that guy that plays, above himself from an athletic standpoint. He was phenomenal. And so there you go. I just think bringing him back, and he talked to Mick Randall, the Herald Sun, about it. That he's come back with a point to prove. And like I always say about your legend Bryce Cotton, Robbie, when you've got a guy like that, when Bryce Cotton has extra motivation or a point to prove, like he does right now, and the same thing for Matthew Dellavedova, then look out the rest of the NBL.
Sure.
And he's got a chip on his shoulder, as you said, right? And you look back on that campaign that we just had at the World Cup, and we could have done with a Delhi, man. Straight up, we could have, right? So And his stroke is looking nice, man. His stroke
That's the
is
thing,
looking
right?
nice.
Yeah, that's always been the question.
Yeah.
Can he consistently hit the outside shot? And on what we've seen so far, yeah, it's looking good.
For me, boys, it's just this great Australian talent that we've got.
Yeah.
These young guys that are here in the league: Taron Armstrong, Alex Tui, Ben Henschel, Rocco. I mean, it's awesome that these guys have chosen to come and play in the league this year and have that Australian talent deciding to stay here. It's just been amazing, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Tui, to your point, had committed to Gonzaga, one of the powerhouses of the NCAA, and the Kings talked him out of it. So there you go. Yeah, and then Zikarsky, he could have had his pick of colleges. Yeah. I mean, guy that size, that mobility, could have gone anywhere he wanted to, but thought that the NBL was the best way forward for him. It's just great.
Shout out to our boy Liam and the work he's doing with the Next Stars program as well, man. It's just amazing. Where it's at right now is dope, right? And all eyes are on our league right now, and we can't be more happier with the state of the league at the moment, right?
Robbie should bow down to Liam for bringing him Alex Sarr.
Word up.
I mean, my goodness. Yeah. Alex Sarr, holy cow. Look out.
Oh, definitely. We've seen that, These are the kind of intangibles that you want. A guy that can block shots and stretch the floor. That kind of combination doesn't come around very often, right?
7-1.
Yeah, word.
Unbelievable.
All right, so let's move on, guys. I want to talk about the Kings. I know I've been waiting for this since last year.
You didn't need me for this. I'll come back in half an hour or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So let's chop it up. Really excited for the Kings season ahead. Got my membership sorted right up near the floor at the Kings bench as usual.
Where I used to be, where now they stick me up the back calling around. God, I'm starting to need glasses. I'm not kidding. Anyway,
so
I'm jealous, Robbie. That's just me being jealous of you. So there you go.
So we're going for our second three-peat and building a dynasty here, and I'm loving it, Robbie.
And Robbie's like, second three-peat? What are you talking about? No, how many championships you got?
10, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what do you think, Matt, on paper? How do you think this team compares to last year? Obviously, a number of key changes. Do you think they'll still have the hunger coming into this season?
That's always the question, isn't it? Because, but there's been a lot of changes at key positions, right? So it is fascinating, particularly the starters, obviously. The bench pretty much returned as is, which was a massive key, I thought. But, it's so amazing, and look, Woody would know this as well. And I've spoken about this often, just the funny parallels between the 04-05 team, which was the third team to win the championship and got the three-peat, and this team. In that 03-04, you had the greatest Sydney King ever in Matthew Nielsen. He up and leaves, goes to Europe. This last year we had the league MVP and one of the greatest, established himself as one of the best Sydney Kings ever in Xavier Cooks. And the team was built around him, just as that 03-04 team was built around Matty. He leaves and goes to Washington. So, it is fascinating. And then you have to replace that. Well, how do you do that? Well, the Kings in 04-05 were, originally it was Benny Knight, my great
BK,
my brother. And so, and he was fantastic. But really that team was made when they eventually, it took them a while, but they got Roland Roberts and changed everything, put him alongside Mark Sanford, and away they went and destroyed the playoffs and won. And were perfect in the playoffs. So went 5-0 in winning the championship. This year the Kings have again they've had some losses because the other guy, of course, was Ebi Ara that was in that 03-04 team who was obviously won the grand final for us.
Yep.
In Game 5 with that shooting exhibition of his. So they lost a lot of guys that were very key guys, particularly the guy that the team was built around, the same as this year. How they've replaced him, well, I mean, again. Chris Pondgrass is a genius, and I'm not just saying that because he's a friend of mine. I think you just look at what he's done and look at the talent he's brought in. It is absolutely extraordinary how year after year after year they keep bringing in these guys. The only one negative ever with Pondgrass was RJ Hunter, and I didn't like that, and because I knew his background and I knew. There were a lot of stories about him, and look, you never want to see a guy get injured. But I maintain if he didn't go down, there's no way the Kings win that championship that year. He just wasn't good for that program. That's the one misstep. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good strike rate. So Chris Prendergast has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And then, of course, who they eventually replaced the guy with, my God. So, that's right. And you're at a point, again, where you've got three guys who are as imports who could play in the NBA, and obviously one has, and not only played in the NBA, Denzel Valentine, but won the National College Player of the Year. And I love it when we get these guys that have played in these mega programs like Michigan State and played for these unbelievable coaches like Tom Izzo that Valentine did. Someone said to me, he's like, he could be the Scottie Pippen of the NBL, which is high praise. Now, I think that the question mark with him has been the injuries because, after he was drafted by Chicago, spent about 4 or 5 years there. Injuries have really killed him, and that's why he's been playing in the G League. He kind of faded away, a little bit of out of sight, out of mind with him. So he's using this year to try and get back to the league. I have said this, and I want to preface this by saying that I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm just saying there's a potential. That backcourt with Jalen Adams, former league MVP, and Denzel Valentine, former National College Player of the Year, first-round NBA draft pick by the Chicago Bulls, could potentially be, at the very least, the best backcourt the Sydney Kings have ever put on the floor, which is all. When you consider some of the backcourts we've had over the years, CJ Bruton, Jason Smith, and Damian Keogh, Dwayne McClain, and Shane Hill, and Kavossi, Shane Hill, Isaac Burton in the 96 team, for example. So I know that's a big statement, but like those two on the floor together could be something incredible. And it's just potential. It's based off pedigree. It's based off past performance and potential, all the P's. And then you lose Xavier and you replace him with DJ Hogue. Now, it's a bit of a concern with DJ because he's hurt his shoulder, and I've been told that he might be out for a while. So that's a worry.
It is a worry.
In the season. So obviously not playing at the Blitz, and given we're only 9 days until tip-off in the regular season proper, I don't know for sure, but there's a thought that he might miss a few games, which would be obviously disappointing. But they like, again, there's the parallel to 0405. We got off to a slow start then, back then, and the Kings might get off to a slow start. But if you want to look at talk about the rest of the roster, Woody, I mean, I think.
Yeah, I think for all the audience that are listening to the audio version of the show and that can't see what's on the screen, I might just quickly go through the roster.
Yeah.
We got new head coach Mahmoud Abdul Fattah returning. We got Jalen Galloway, Jackson McCoy, Angus Glover, Kuat Noy, Jordan Hunter, Sean Bruce. As you mentioned, Chris Prendergast has done a great job bringing in some new talent. We got Maluach, who you guys are familiar with from the NBL 1, Clara Samia, DJ Hogue, Jonah Bolden, all right, coming back from 3 years
my boy.
Out of basketball. Alex Tui, as we spoke about earlier, Jalen Adams, Sam Timmons, and Denzel Valentine, you spoke of earlier. I don't know if you agree with this depth chart. I think Robbie's got a question later for you if you agree with my depth chart, Maddie. But I got Jalen Adams and Denzel Valentine in the backcourt, as you said. I got Jalen Galloway, DJ Hogue, Jordan Hunter, and then off the bench, Bruce, Glover, Tui, Noy, Bolden. And then the third string of McCoy, Amir, Maluach, Gatona, and Timmons. So the first question I guess I've got for you, Matt, is, and you mentioned it earlier, our bench played a huge part in our success last year, right? A massive part, right?
Yep.
And as the Kings do, we like to wait a little bit to shore up our imports. We usually recycle imports and get 2 or 3 new imports every year. It's rare that an import comes back. So what we did first and foremost was to go back and sign those guys on the bench again.
Yep.
Glover, Noy, etc. Right? How smart was that move?
Well, it's funny. It kind of reminded me of what, getting back to the Wildcats, and I do tend to reference the Wildcats a bit. Well, why not? What the Wildcats did during their dynasty, I had this thought today that one of the huge things they did was create that core group of guys. Now, they weren't necessarily, bench guys. I mean, some were starters like your Damos and your Matty Knights and then your Greg Hyes, Jesse Wagstaff. They were that core group for so many years, right, Robbie? And I think the Kings have kind of recognised that, and I mean, Woody just brought it up, that they do recycle through players and the reason for that, because obviously you lose Dejan Vasiljevic as well, who signed that Exhibit 10 with Washington. So you still have to have a core group of guys who understand, who set the tone, who understand the culture, which is, who generate the culture, and that way, you've at least got that consistency through the program. Now these are bench guys, but like Woody pointed out, I mean, Angus Glover was this close to winning MVP of the final series for what he did, and that's just one example. I mean, Sean Bruce was great as a backup point guard. Galloway, who again I go back to Simon Mitchell, who absolutely loves the guy. Was just a matchup nightmare just with his length and athleticism. And that's going to be an interesting story because I've got some thoughts on that as well. I bet that's where it comes from with Robbie. But, again, what can you say? Just extremely smart. And I think that was the philosophy. We want a core group of guys. This is our core group with the understanding that our upper echelon guys, and we've been public in saying this, are guys that are going to be sought after by the NBA, by EuroLeague teams, whatever it might be. We want to help them get to that level. So there is going to be, they've come out and said it, there is going to be that turnover, but you still need consistency. Not just for your program, obviously for the fans as well, because the fans, it's that connection. You and I have talked about that many times, Woody. The connection you felt with the Kings when you first came.
For
exactly
sure.
The same thing. I think this is the same situation as well.
Well, Matt, the guy in charge of trying to get some of these guys to the next level, of course, Coach Abdul Fattah there. How do you sort of see him adjusting to his first season? What sort of style of play are you expecting from him?
It's like the Kings have recycled so many. I mean, it's incredible to think how many coaches the Kings have rolled out over the last 6 seasons. And he'll be, I think, the fifth. I could be wrong, but it's.
No, you're right.
Yeah. So, it's fascinating, isn't it? It just sort of comes with that great unknown. I haven't spoken to him as yet. What I have heard that great guy, very positive, very energetic. The guys have taken to him extremely well. I think he's come out and said he's going to play a very up-tempo brand of basketball, much the same way that Chase.
Yeah, we've seen that in the Blitz already, right?
Yeah. But I think they still have some work to do. The thing about Chase is he had a defensive mindset. Yeah, he was very up and down, but it was all about we've got to get stops. That's what he was about, and we don't know what Mahmoud's philosophy around that's going to be. So they might not be as good defensively as they have been in recent years, but they might be better offensively because you replace Justin Simon, who unbelievable defender, but he's not your primary. He's not a primary option as an import.
Yeah.
You got three guys who can absolutely destroy the league. I mean, we've seen it with DJ, we've seen it with Jalen. Potential of Denzel is, incredible. So you've got it's more focused on the imports and then the core group of bench guys as the backup, and then of course the great X factor, Jonah Bolden.
So let's talk about that real quickly. It's a good segue there, right? And Jonah, he's been out of the league, out of playing basketball for 3 years. I must say, it's very nostalgic to see the name Pinder on the back of a Wildcats jersey and Bolden on the back of a Kings jersey.
Isn't it? It's great.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. But I know Bruce has been speaking to Derek Rucker about how he's ready to go. He's primed. But what kind of impact can he have on this Kings ball club, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's one of those. It's the ultimate low risk, high reward signing because it's not like he's coming in, despite his pedigree. I mean, a guy that was on the fringe of Australian playing for his country and obviously went to UCLA, was drafted by the 76ers and the romance around that and Brett Brown and all of that stuff. But then kind of fell out of love with the game. That's the reality and hasn't played for 3 years. But when you, as you said, and when you look at the physical stuff with him, though, 6'11", athletic, can shoot the three, can rim protect. I'm not saying he does all these things now. I'm just saying this is what he was. Runs the floor incredibly well for a big man. But when you see him so far in the Blitz, this is a guy that hasn't played a genuine game of basketball at this level for 3 years. So it's low risk, high reward because they're not. I don't think they're paying him that much. I'm sure he's on a decent coin, but it wouldn't be, something ridiculous. and there's not an expectation really that everyone's sort of more focused on Jalen Adams and Denzel and DJ and what they can do, and then Galloway and some of the youngsters they brought in. It's going to go one or two ways, but the Kings are so deep. I mean, that's the thing. I obviously, purely selfishly, I want him to succeed. I've known this kid since he was 10 years old, and I love him to death. I mean, funny story. When Bruce and I were calling Kings games in the 07-08 season, Jonah and his sister Cairo, who, by the way, is now a fashion model, if you don't mind, doing fantastic work overseas. But anyway, I used to go out the back of the entertainment centre and bring them back drinks and snacks and stuff. So, so Jonah and I have been close for a long time. And, I want to see him succeed so badly. Obviously, his father's very important to me and has been for a long, long time. And same with Jonah. So I just hope that it works out.
When Jonah was a little kid, he'd come with Bruce down to the brick pit in Thornley, or he'd come down to and they'd just be jacking up shots. So I'd be there practicing, and then those two would be working out to the right, and Jonah was just a little kid back then. So, I mean, just to see a Sydney product, come back after, as you said, he fell out of love with the game, did his crypto thing for a while and whatnot, and he's come back, and he's representing the ball club that his father represented and the city as well. It's nice. You wish him nothing but success.
Absolutely, and it could be a fantastic story, right?
Yep.
And I mean, imagine if it blows up. That maybe second half of the season we start seeing what we did see before he left the game, and it's great for Australian basketball as well, because I think we've I think one of the things that the World Cup taught us is that we're a little light on for bigs at the moment, so we can always use someone with that size, and people will scoff, and fair enough. I don't blame them, because there's nothing to say that any of this will happen, but I just think it'd be a great story if it does.
Well, Matt, another name we wanted to ask you about, of course, Alex Tui. We sort of briefly mentioned him at the start. So, as people are probably aware, we both cover the NBL One East very closely in our roles as commentators there. And look, we saw that 19-year-old, firsthand, didn't we, for COE, just dominating this season there. What are you expecting that he'll bring to the team this season?
I think, and Woody's depth chart sort of has Jalen Galloway in front of him. I mean, Jalen.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, it's not, and that I don't necessarily disagree with you, because Galloway has superstar potential, in my opinion, and not just my opinion, but a few people in the NBL think he's going to bust out. We saw that in the first game of the Blitz. You sort of saw the kind of just the guy is athletically gifted beyond comprehension at times. He can shoot the three, and he's improving on that. Defensively, he can guard 1 through 4, and he takes it upon himself as a challenge. He'll rebound. He just flies down the court and plays above the rim. So, he's an absolute star in the making. But this kid Tui, honest to God, I mean, look, Gonzaga just don't just go after guys.
No,
this is the thing. Like a program like that, they were really like pissed off that Tui decommitted. So that tells you a lot, and I just think the size, the fluid. I love the way he moves. He's very fluid. He's sneaky long. Again, another one like Henschel, sneaky athletic. Does an enormous amount. Plays both ends, and again, like all these COE guys, and I give Robbie McKinlay, the coach, who's also a friend, enormous credit for what he did with those boys. So I think he did a tremendous job, and because you can see the work ethic that these guys have, and don't be surprised. Look, it's going to be a battle between them for minutes all year. Yeah, it's Mahmoud's got his work cut out trying to get minutes for both of them. He may play alongside each other at times, because the Kings have got a very versatile roster, and I mean, we know that's kind of been a philosophy of theirs over the last 3 or 4 years. They want to have guys that can play multiple positions. So, Tui's a guy that can sort of play 3, 4 at a pinch. Young guy with massive potential.
Let's talk about that depth chart then, Matt. So Woody obviously mentioned that before. He's got Galloway starting at the 3. Do you think that will take place? And are you expecting a big leap from young Jalen this year?
Yeah, I am. And as I said, but it could be horses for courses. I mean, there could be. And look, it is a lot to put on a youngster, but you can already see it. He just looks like he belongs. He looks like he's very comfortable at this level. And look, I mean, he tore the NBL 1 apart, of course, as he should. Yeah. But I was so impressed with him the first time I saw him live.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I heard you on the roundtable saying Alex Tui is probably going to start for this team. I'm like, I just put the depth chart together. I put Jalen Galloway in starting at the 3, and Robbie's like, okay, maybe I'll add that question in.
No, yeah, it's a good question, and again, it's a hell of a good problem to have for Mahmood that he's got these two young guys that are going to push hard for minutes in this ball club.
I think it's good that so many of these Kings guys have played NBL 1 in the off-season as well.
I couldn't agree more.
Tui, Galloway, Angus Glover. There's a lot of these guys, Jordy Hunter. Yeah, so a lot of these guys have been putting up those reps in the off-season, which I think is going to be very important.
It's what we always talk about with NBL 1, isn't it? It is establishing itself as that legitimate pathway. Yeah. And it was great. Not just the Kings boys, but a lot of the NBL guys played in NBL 1, which was fantastic to see.
Well, let's talk about that backcourt. You say it's possibly one of the best backcourts, if not the best in Kings history, right?
On paper.
On paper.
It's the P's. Potential, that potentially. Just with the pedigree is the other word.
Let's deal with Denzel Valentine first, right? I mean, he's a Swiss Army knife. He can do a little bit of everything, right?
I guess that's why the Pippen comparison, right?
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that loud and clear. Right? Now, I know you said he's had injuries and whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter Nodge, a guy who plays basketball with us, big Bulls fan. My barber, Matt, big Bulls fan. If you watch the documentary, the G League documentary recently on Amazon Prime, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that stands out for me is he going to be a good locker room guy? Is he going to be a good teammate, right?
Yep.
I mean,
it's a fair question.
The skill set is not doubted, right?
Yep.
But a lot of these guys come down to the league and the NBL and think, I'm the 14th pick in the NBA draft.
Yep.
I'm going to bring the ruckus, right?
Yep.
Can he be that guy who's going to be humble and help this team and be a good teammate?
I think, again, the Kings are meticulous in doing research.
Unlike Adelaide, right?
And a big... okay, there. But they are meticulous.
Yep.
And look, Andrew Bogut, Luke Long, I mean, these guys, it's been there, done that. They've done it all. They've got enormous respect in the basketball community worldwide. They know their stuff. Pongrass knows his stuff. And I can't see it. I think one of the things, as you said, the talent's obvious. Wipe that away.
I hear that.
What it then comes down to is you're on the money, Woody. It's about character. It's about fit. It's about personality. And look, from all accounts, he's been exemplary so far. Okay? That's all we can go on. Is kind of what comes out of Kings HQ, and some of the people I've talked to think that he's an absolute stud. I think he is as well, it is always the question. But look, it's the question with a lot of these guys.
It's fair enough for me to raise that, right?
Oh, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Because there's always we know with Jalen, we know what we're getting with him. Let's forget about that. We know what we're getting with DJ. In terms of fit and how great he was with Cairns, and and they're always with imports. It's always the question mark. Is what as talented as they may be. I mean, perfect example of Mark Patterson. Turned up and was eating Big Macs and Krispy Kremes like they're going out of style. And I mean, I've told this story a bunch of times, but an NBA scout, actually a GM, told me that they love Lamar, but they think he's he's a box of Krispy Kremes short of the NBA. So that's how much talent he had, but useless if you don't respect the game, respect your team, come in out of shape, and all that sort of stuff. Now, none of that has happened with Denzel, and he's been terrific so far.
Well, let's move to his backcourt teammate, right? Jalen Adams. Now, he left the Kings a few years ago to look for opportunities overseas. I actually thought he might get an opportunity in the NBA, but he went overseas, right? Now, that didn't actually work out for him like he would have liked, did it?
No.
It wasn't the greatest experience for him.
It's often the case.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, Woody, Chris Pongrass told me how much he was being paid by us, the Kings, and then how much he got paid overseas. It was just, let's just say it was more than 5 times, well more than 5 times what the Kings were paying him. You can't turn that down.
You can't.
You can't. Not for a guy that, still has aspirations of playing the NBA, but as you mentioned the great man Liam Santamaria, he once said to me that the thing about Jalen is he's got to be the guy. He's not going to be a guy that's going to come off the bench.
I've heard Liam
in the
say
NBA.
that before.
That's not what he wants to be. He wants to be the guy on an NBA team. And the thing is, he probably has the talent, but does he have the physical attributes? Probably not. And he wants to be the guy. So, that's the thing. And maybe it doesn't work out that way for that reason. But, he's still incredible. And, I mean, I told you guys, you sort of look back, it was one season. It's easy to be hyped up. But for what he did in that one season, you just immediately put him in that upper echelon of Kings point guards, the CJs, the Steve Carfinos. I mean, Derek Walton Jr., obviously, but that was later. But, I mean, you just have to put him up there, don't you? He was extraordinary. And he's, he loves this place. He loves the team. He loves
the city, man.
The city.
Yeah.
And he's a showman but just a great basketball player.
He puts bums on seats, man, as well, right? Which is going to be good, right?
Which we talked about. That's something that's important for the Kings, always has been.
And finally, let's talk about, we talk about Adelaide struggling with their recruiting. You talk about Cairns and how well they recruit. I really feel sorry for them. You got DJ Ho, you got Shannon Scott. We can go back over the years and see how many times they recruited some great imports that eventually went and left for another team, right? Yeah. DJ Hoag's a high character guy. I know you mentioned that he's injured and he's going to take some time to get up to speed. But what a great pickup. I know Robbie loves DJ Hoag, man. What a great pickup he's been for this team, right?
Yeah, Robbie, I mean, you can probably speak to that.
Yeah, I think an amazing pickup, right? I mean, he was, right up there in terms of the best player in the comp, I think, last season. I know when there was talk that he was, looking at other teams there, I was kind of like, can the Wildcats get him there? And,
of course you did.
Of course I did, but full credit to the Kings for getting him. I think he'll fit in really well.
You got Alex Sarr, bro. You got Alex Sarr. You got Keanu Pinder, man.
And we still got an import spot there as well.
So. Just quietly.
But no, I think he's going to fit in really well. Obviously playing with a lot deeper team, I think, than what he had in Cairns last season. Like Matt said, he's obviously carrying a bit of an injury. Hopefully that's not going to linger too much into the season.
Fingers crossed.
I think Kings fans are going to love what they see with him. He's just a player that's, great at both ends of the court. It was the defense that probably surprised me last year. He'd get up and block shots there and, really sort of work his ass off at both ends of the court there. So, they've really got a good one there, I think.
Yeah.
While we're talking about the front court as well, we talked about DJ Hoag. Jonah Bolton, as you mentioned, Matt, he's going to take a while to get his reps and find his feet. But how nice is it to have a guy like Jordan Hunter who's going to be able to, probably start and hold the fort for the first bit of the season and allow Jonah to actually, get up to speed.
Yeah, it's a luxury. I don't think he's been, if he hasn't been the best backup big in the league over the last couple of years, he's probably close. He'd be top 3, top 4 easily. It's great because we talked about our friend Benny Knight, who's had a lot to do with Jordan over the years, and he told me that Jordan maybe in the past didn't love the game as much as you wanted him to, but I think over the last 3 or 4 years he's really gotten entrenched in the whole idea of being one of this team and really representing the purple and gold and really getting into that part of it, and you can see it. He always plays hard. He's got great mobility. He can do things like pull out those games where he goes like 9 for 9 from the field, and you just say, "What the hell is this?" But that's what he's always been capable of that. I mean, we've seen him, in Waratah League back in the day, and I know it's a different level, obviously, but I think I've got enormous time for him. I always have, and he doesn't try and do too much. He just he knows his role. That's what's great about this Kings bench is how many of them just accept their role without question. Why wouldn't you sign a lot of them? There was, with one exception, who is now with Illawarra, and I won't go into. There was some reasons why that happened, but the rest of the group, Jordan in particular, have just been huge. And he's, I think he will start Geordie. I really do. I'd be surprised.
I agree.
A lot of people automatically think, it's going to be Jonah. But then we go back to what we said. The guy hasn't played for 3 years. It's going to take some time. He might down the track.
Yep.
But not now. I can't see that immediately.
All right, so quickly, guys, before we move on, we'll move from NBL Fantasy to Supercoach this year, right? So like we did every year, like we've done every year, Supercoach, stud, and sleeper. Maybe I'll throw over to you, Robbie.
I mean, look, you got to say DJ Hogue, I think, for the stud. We saw he
not
was
worried about the shoulder, or
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's dependent on health. There, saying he is healthy, I'd probably put him there.
I'd go Valentine anyway. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, we know some of the big guys like Hogue can put up those defensive numbers.
Jalen
Adams.
Yeah.
Only because he's going to have the ball in his hands and he's the scorer. He's more of that. Yeah, he's a great facilitator. We know that, but he is at his core still more of a quote scoring point guard, right? So.
And Wood's the sleeper, an absolute lock, Alex Tui. I'm not going to give the score away because I know you guys are going to watch this Kings-Melbourne game, but he's the leading scorer for the Kings tonight. Okay. So, cool 19 points on 6 of 11 shots. So, yeah, Alex Tui, I think, for the sleeper, absolutely. Be able to get him at a good price.
Yep, no, I agree with that. All right,
I won't be watching the game, but never mind.
You've seen the score then, right?
I have, yeah.
So
it's only pre-season.
That's it.
It's only pre-season. So before we move on, we've got a viewer's question just for you, Maddie, right?
Oh, no.
Just been sent in from our audience. So Jimmy Boyd, who's from Drummoyne, he's a big fan of the show. I actually know Jimmy quite well. He's a Kings diehard. Jimmy asks,
good on him.
Maddie, you've been around the Kings organization for so long now. What would you say is your favorite Sydney Kings memory of all time? Right?
Oh, my God. This is hard, man. This is really hard.
I should have given you some heads up about this.
I know. Right? Thanks for that. God, talk about. Well, it's interesting because people often ask me that, not the same question, but something along the same sort of lines. Around, what was your favourite team? That's what they ask. What's your favourite team? And the answer is always a team that actually didn't win the championship, which surprises people, but which was 07-08. But in terms of favourite memory, we've already talked about him, Dwayne.
Yep.
I mean, it just is because that, I'm as you said, oh my God, 24. That was that long ago. Holy cow! That was 31 years ago. Yeah, it's incredible. But the fact that I remember everything, I don't know how, because copious amounts of alcohol were consumed.
Yes, in the nightclub with Dori Kadahi and.
Dory, who was like 16, and anyway, let's not go there. I'll get him in trouble. Look,
Rodney O. I mean, come on, man.
I always go back to '92. I just do.
Yeah.
It was just, and again, people have this thing, the rose-colored glasses, and you always romanticize the past and all of this. It's what drives me mad with this, the LeBron MJ stuff, and you're kind of like, you seriously didn't see Michael Jordan play basketball, really. If you
young guys didn't, man.
Ever. Yeah. And then this is me saying that as, my favourite athlete of all time is everybody. Not that he was an athlete, but my favourite, player of all time is Larry Bird. And I saw him live, and he's the greatest player I ever saw in my life. And and obviously Michael comes along, and it's kind of that evolution from, Anyway, but getting back to the question. Yeah, my favourite memories, as hard as it is, I mean, look, obviously I was in Perth when we won the first championship. I was courtside for that amazing Game 5.
Yep.
And I was on the floor hugging Chris Carrawell and everybody I could find, hugging Gorge and everything. And same with 05. And then obviously being a part of the next two championships as well. But 92 was just extraordinary. It really was. That whole scene and what every Kings game at the Entertainment Centre, I said this before, was an event. It truly was. It was, everybody wanted to be part of it. It was extraordinary. And it was just unfortunate we didn't win a championship that year. And, one of the things I'll never forget is that you'd remember, Woody, that second level of the Entertainment Centre, and the player, they had bars there, and
I do remember.
After Game 3 on that Sunday afternoon, the players would come up from underneath, walk up stairs in the stadium, and then they'd open the door, and then they'd come out, and then there'd be sort of like, there'd be crowds there. There were thousands, and
I remember.
When so I'm waiting by the door because I knew Dwayne was just about to come in, and he opened it up, and the whole place went berserk. Even we'd lost, everyone was upset, but saw him and went crazy, and they just crowded him and autograph order. So I said, "Do you want me to clear a path for you?" He goes, "Would you?" I said, "Yeah." So I was literally Dwayne McClain's bouncer. They just sort of get out of the way and make way for train, and and it wasn't just him. I mean, it was Kenny McClary and some of the stories with him and Rodney and like I said, Dory, Danny Kodahi, Tahi and all of us, and how close we all were and how much fun we had and going on the road and all the stories from that. And it was just a fantastic time. And because we'd never seen that before, look, 89, 90, when we moved to the entertainment centre, that was awesome that first year. And then 91 with Dwayne was great. We didn't even make the playoffs that year. But then 92 came around, man, and it changed everything. And we've never seen anything like it. I'd love to see it again, but I probably won't. So, long-winded answer, but my favourite memory of the Kings is probably that year in 1992.
Jimmy Boyd, you heard it first, man. You're 30. I think you're 30 years old, Jimmy. So this is before your time, bro. Before you were born. So the Kings have got a long history and heritage, and hopefully you enjoyed that answer from Matt. Right? Okay, so guys, we're running out of time, but one quick question for you, Matt. Boston Celtics. How are they looking this year? Right? You happy with what they've done? Bring in Chris Tapps. I think they brought in Delano Banton, I think, as well. I think, right? And
it's kind of their 14th, 15th players, yeah.
Yeah, I'll say Brissett, I think, or Shea Brissett, maybe from.
Yeah, Mihalovic, I think.
Mihalovic, yeah.
Mihalovic, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they threw the book at your boy Jalen. So how you
which
think
they were always going to do?
They had to.
I mean, there was no way. I mean, and the thing is that contract. I mean, people sort of, oh my god, why are you paying him this much money? The thing is that contract's going to be kind of not mid-range, but it won't be it'll be pretty soon with the new CBA comes in and the new broadcast deals that are just going to blow people's minds with the money that's going to come in. Like what we're seeing with Jalen is probably going to be, not, as I said, it'll still be upper echelon, but it won't be like shake your head, why are you giving all this money to Jalen Brown? Because players are going to get paid big time. Imagine what Jason Tatum's next contract's going to be.
Word up.
Unbelievable. But anyway, I've kind of got mixed feelings about it because obviously Marcus Smart was one of my favourite players.
Tough, man. Tough.
And but there's a school of thought in Boston that he lost a step. That actually Derek White, you could make that argument, played better than he did last season. So he's ready for more minutes. It's also the fact that I think part of it was they wanted it to get away from being Marcus's team. It needs to be Jason and Jalen's team. And I think Marcus might have been holding him back a little bit. I still hate the fact he's gone. I would love to have kept him. And obviously he's been replaced by a guy that on paper, gives them a stretch big that can score a lot, stretch the floor, rebound. He's not a great rim protector as such, but then you've got Robbie Williams for that, and you got Al for that still. They didn't give up that much really when you think about it to get a guy like Porzingis, who obviously was once referred to as the unicorn. So let's see.
The big problem is both those guys.
They're going to be a top 3 team in the East. I mean,
both those guys. You talk about Porzingis, you talk about the Time Lord. These guys got to get healthy, man. They got.
Time Lord's really not been healthy his entire career.
He's not. And then Malcolm Brogdon is not happy at the moment, right?
No, that worries me a bit. Yeah, that worries me.
That's the worry, right?
Because anyway, he was supposed to be part of that trade, then he wasn't.
And no, he didn't like that.
He didn't like it.
He didn't like that. All right, so let's close things out here. Robbie, man, it's been amazing. Matt, chopping it up with you is always a great time, brother.
Oh man,
we love your company. We love your company.
Love you guys, and you do an awesome job. Well done on the Hornets. They didn't do so well, mate, but you did well on commentary yet again. So that was good to see. So
hopefully your boys will be coming to play them on their home court this year. We caught up that first season, didn't we? But they didn't play last year, so I'm sure when the schedule comes out,
we don't want to go. You smashed us on that. God, remember I was there with the
true.
It
was a man, wasn't it?
Yeah. You were happy about.
Take us away, Robbie.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I really appreciate, as Woody said, Matt, we love having you on there. I'm certainly going to make this a regular thing if you're up for it. Just a reminder.
Everyone knows I'm an idiot when it comes to talking hoops. I just stick me on and
fit in well with us. Yeah. Well, just a reminder where we can be found on Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it. We're at Throwback Hoops. Instagram with throwback.hoops. And of course, our email address is throwbackhoospodcast@gmail.com. Woods, before I throw it to you, I should sort of point out for viewers, you are going to be away for, I think, the whole month of October. So I'm going to be having some special guests filling in.
Let's talk about those special guests. We got Jacinta Govin coming to co-host the show. We got Mookie Sky Rally. What do you say? Sky Rally? That's how we say? Ski Rally. All right, Mookie, my boy. And we got the sport blokes, Nathan and Stewie from Perth, coming to co-host the show when I'm away on holiday. So
and we're going to make some predictions as well next week, Woods, as we've done sort of each season doing this show now. Some NBL predictions there, which we'll talk about at the end of the season, how wrong and how right we were. So, what about you? Got any shout-outs for us, Woods?
Man, I got my 40th birthday party coming up next Saturday. All those 4 people we just mentioned are going to be there.
I'm a child. I wish I was 40.
The theme is Throwbacks, Matt, and I'm going to be rapping that song that I just rapped at the start of the show with my boy Rocky, live with DJ Vinny. It's going to be fun, and awesome. if you can make it. Matt, I asked you about it, but you'll be calling the game that night, right? So
that might be hard for it.
That's right.
On the season opener for the Kings, unfortunately, but that's
there you go.
Yeah. All right, so Matt, what about you, man? Where can people find you, follow you, all that jazz, man? Tell them about the round table, all that, right?
Yeah. Well, Filipino fans still want to kill me.
Oh man.
I literally, people don't believe me. I can show you. I had death threats. There you go. God love their passion. Anyway, at MATTMC33 in honor of Mr. Bird. On Twitter, Matt McQuade on Instagram, and Facebook, and all that good stuff. So we're actually doing our roundtable season preview next week.
We can't wait.
And we're going to have that extravaganza, which will go for 2 hours. I mean, we did the sort of the storyline thing with Mick Randall, as I said, with the Herald Sun, and that went for 90 minutes. It's just one of those things where it's hoops, man. I mean, we love talking about it. So hoping to have we will have a couple of special guests on. So as we always do. So looking forward to that.
Tell Adam.
Season coming up.
Yakisevichus. That's how you say it.
Yasikevicius. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Sarunas Yasikevicius. Yeah.
Yeah. We used to love Sarunas Marshalonis as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Saw him play. He played at the Entertainment Centre before the Kings even existed. That Soviet team. Alexander Volkov, Rumas Kurtinitis. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hey? Tikkanenko, Valerie Tikkanenko.
Yep.
Oh, man, they were awesome, those Soviet teams.
Yeah. All right, Robbie, final thoughts?
Yeah, we'll just obviously continue to support the NBL and watch this NBL Blitz. You don't read too much into these pre-seasons, but I think it's a good opportunity to see some guys getting minutes there. But really looking forward to do our predictions next week, and absolutely love to have Matt on the show.
I'll be watching them and commenting on them,
nice.
Sending plenty of private messages. Watch out.
We love you, Matt McQuade. You're the man.
Thanks, guys.
And from the team at Throwback Hoops, it's peace out.